Hello everybody, my name is Star Raptor and I want to thank you all for joining me for another episode of This Week in Star Wars Canon. I talk about everything from the comics, to the TV series, to the novels, and the video games. But first off, I want to talk about some movie news. We got the title for episode 8, which is going to be called The Last Jedi. So just some things I want to talk about was, first off, I noticed this is a really interesting title because it actually connects in a full sentence with the previous title, The Force Awakens, A Last Jedi. So that leads to more speculation. Could Rey actually be the Last Jedi because the Force sort of awakened in her? But then it could also mean Luke Skywalker. But then there's the whole other thing where Jedi can be both plural and singular, so could there be other Jedi besides Rey and Luke? And I have to touch upon the ominous looking font of Star Wars. Well, more or less the color of the font is a dark red. So does this mean somebody will fall, somebody will turn to the dark side, somebody will die? We don't know, but we will know on December 15th, 2017. It's just a little over 300 days away. It sounds like a lot, guys, but it'll be here sooner than you think. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about for this week was the new episode of Star Wars Rebels titled Trials of the Dark Saber. So this was another Sabine Wren-centric story revolving around her training with her Dark Saber. So Canon finally made her, along with the whole Rebels crew, finally made her learn how to use this thing because to her people, the Mandalorians, it symbolizes a way to unify all the clans, which the Rebels hope that they can do so they can have some more allies to fight against the Empire. So Sabine in this episode was training against Ezra, was training against Canon, who was teaching her, and she actually did spill a bit of her emotions and her backstory a little bit more. It seems to get fleshed out in this episode. Alright, so I'm going to get into my positives of this week's episode of Star Wars Rebels. So, first off, I want to say that this was a bit different from what we normally get from a Rebels episode. There wasn't no secondary stuff going on with the Empire or pirates. This was specifically character driven for Sabine, which I really appreciated. I also really dug the lore bits that we got from the Mandalorian. So the Dark Saber, the backstory was it was created by a Mandalorian Jedi. That's right, I said Mandalorian Jedi. How awesome is that? I can't imagine a Mandalorian Jedi. That's just so much badass to me that I can't even fathom it. But anyway, so once he died, the Jedi kept his Dark Saber in a Jedi temple, but then the other members of Clan Vizsla extracted that saber and then they used it to unify their forces to kind of conquer the known universe. And this was back, you know, hundreds if not thousands of years before the events of the Phantom Menace. And when they were talking about the story, it was Fen Ra that was talking about the story. It was a really cool animation. It was like a wall painting kind of illustration going on depicting the events that he was talking about. So I really liked that. And then Sabine, her inner conflict with her even trying to imagine herself going back to her people because there was strife that was happening. But I like to see that inner conflict. Another thing was Fen Ra looking like an absolute badass. He reminded me of having like a Jango Fett type of armor, but more modern looking. Really cool. I did like seeing the progression of Sabine's training, how they were there for days on the outskirts of the base, you know, having to get like rations, you know, sent to them by speeder bikes. They didn't want to be bothered by anybody else. They kind of isolated themselves, Ezra and Canon and Sabine. I really liked to see that Canon was training Sabine. I really got a lot of that samurai, blind samurai kind of feeling, and Sabine also having trouble with Canon as her teacher, just like Ezra had in the past, and we see that eventually that changes over. I also really enjoyed Canon talking about the significance of a kyber crystal and how it's kind of the extension of the Force user, and you could channel that to become, you know, even more proficient with the lightsaber. And that leads me into thinking, okay, is Sabine Force sensitive because she's able to harness this Darksaber so well against her opponents? And something that I really liked also about Fen Ra is how he gave her the gadgets, the stuff that was on her wrist. She had like a repulsor thing, but unfortunately it got damaged by her lightsaber when she fell over. Another thing I really liked was the little laser lash or whatever it's called. That was really cool how she was able to grab the lightsaber then also shoot it at Canon. Really interesting. the ending of this episode was such a, it hit me in the feels. It really did. I'll be honest with you. It was something I haven't really felt in Rebels maybe since Twilight of the Apprentice. It was really, really, really like that. The music was just paired with the dialogue that Sabine was speaking. I gotta give credit to where credit's due to T.S. Surkar. She did an incredible job voicing Sabine. I really felt her pain when she was talking about her past, building stuff for the Empire, and then trying to save her family, and they didn't want to be helped. Just absolutely incredible. The only thing I would have liked to see differently in this episode was what happened with Bendu and Sabine. And I know that they didn't have enough time, obviously, but I would have liked to see what the Bendu was saying to Sabine. Is she, like I said, is she force sensitive? I don't know. That'd be pretty cool if she was a Mandalorian that was force sensitive down the line. But I really, really enjoyed this episode. What a hell of an episode. This is one of the best episodes of Star Wars Rebels, period. I think it's safe to say the best one of Season 3 so far. But we have plenty more episodes to look forward to. Unfortunately, we have a 3 or 4 week hiatus for some reason after they just had 3 episodes after the Christmas holiday. So I don't really know what's going on. Rebels is known to be inconsistent. So that's going to do it for my talk on Star Wars Rebels Trials of the Dark Saber. But I want to know what you guys thought of it, so please let me know in that comment section below. But that wasn't all we had this week. We also had the release of Star Wars number 27. This is part 2 of Yoda's Secret War. So basically what happened in the last issue is Luke Skywalker is trying to find C-3PO, or trying to find R2, who is trying to find C-3PO, and R2 messed with his X-Wing's engine, so he's stuck there in space. He thought it'd be a good time to maybe pop open Obi-Wan's good old journal there and start reading up on some history. And he's reading about the history of Yoda. So last we left off with Yoda, he was called through the Force to go investigate this planet that when he arrived, there was a bunch of kids, and this is where 27 picks up. So he finds these kids that have these spears that are actually, he can't control the Force. There's some kind of resistance thing, but there also is a conflict. And the planet is full of kids. There's these kids that are from the mud, basically. They're called like the Mud Rockers or something like that. But then they have these rival kids called the Stonehawkers, and it all revolves around this big mountain. And over the years, they've mined all the resources, and now the people that own this mountain have the so-called power. So these mud dweller people that Yoda is, teaming up with are now trying to go against them. And basically, at the end of this one, Yoda gets captured by the Stonehawkers who own this mountain, and they're forcing him to go into this mountain through these trials to find the heart of the mountain. And that's where this issue kind of leaves off. So yes, it is a bit of a confusing but perhaps interesting story. I'm going to go into the things I specifically liked about this issue. Now, first off, I mentioned about those stone spears that actually have this compound in them that is force resistant. So is this maybe our first look at cortosis in the Star Wars universe? It seems like it's some kind of kryptonite of the Jedi, because Yoda is literally trying to use the Force to push these out of the way, and he's getting nailed with these things. Something else I really liked is Yoda being portrayed weak on this planet because he can't control the weapons of this stone that are made out of the stone. He is basically a really weak Jedi now, and everything we've seen with Yoda, he is the most powerful Jedi. So this is really, really ironic that in this story we're actually seeing him as weak. I really like that. Another thing that's interesting is seeing Yoda dealing with these children. They're not adults. He's dealing with children that are his adversaries, and obviously he can't hurt them because it's against his motives, it's against his morals. And they're just kids, and he's trying to make peace with them, but they're very violent. So it is quite a hurdle for Yoda to get over with. And something I thought was really cool was Yoda having to go into this mountain as a sense of trials. Now, could this be a parallel to what is, Luke's dealing with in the cave on Dagobah? Maybe since Yoda kind of went through this trial, that's what he kind of uses for Luke to go through the same thing he went through. I guess we'll find out more in Star Wars number 28. And one final thing I have to talk about is, holy crap, how great the artwork is from Salvador Larroca. This guy draws Yoda like I've never seen anybody else draw Yoda. Like, this looks photoreal. Looks like it's digitally put in there. But, man, it is so damn good. So you guys really got to hop on this one for Star Wars, this arc called the Yoda Seeker War. It's really, really good. Are you reading it? I want to know. Let me in that comment section below. But that's going to do it for me, Star Raptor, for this week in Star Wars canon. Thank you all for watching, and may the Force be with you always. So, did you like the video? Then make sure you rate it a thumbs up. And if you did that, go over there, hit that Star Raptor head to subscribe to my channel. Doing so will keep you up to speed on all of my latest content. Speaking of which, you can see a couple of my recent uploads down below. I'm also on social media, so what are you waiting for? Let's start nerding out.